The Fender Tone Master Pro was released on October 3rd, and coincidentally, the same day Neural DSP dropped its price to match the new competition. Now that I've had nearly 2 months with the Tone Master Pro, I want to compare it to the Quad Cortex, seeing as how these are both the same price, at least here in the US. They're also a similar form factor, so I kind of wanted to make this video as if I was using these in a live situation and kind of give you some ideas of what might hold up or last longer for you. Now there are many reasons you might want to use one of these units over the other, especially for live applications. My hope with this video is not to describe one of these as better than the other, but to show you some of the various reasons you may or may not want to consider one over the other. Before we get started, this video is not sponsored, so if you enjoy it and you are considering purchasing one of these units, please use my affiliate link below. It really helps make these videos possible. Now I'm going to hook up each one of these units in my preferred live configuration, which is both through a real cab as well as using the internal speaker IR to front of house, or in this case my audio interface. Everything you will be hearing is direct with no post-processing to give you as raw of a representation as possible. But before we dive into the live demo, let's compare the specs. The Tone Master Pro released in October of 2023, and the Quad Cortex, it's a little bit tricky here to say because it released in April of 2021. However, I purchased on launch day and I didn't receive mine until August 2021, so take that into consideration. The Tone Master Pro has a weight of about 9 pounds and the Quad Cortex has a weight of about 4.2 pounds. Now that might not seem like a dramatic difference, but consider that the Tone Master Pro is twice the weight of the Quad Cortex and almost double the size as well. Now when it comes to amp models, the Tone Master Pro has 29 amp models, where the Quad Cortex has a whopping 95 amp models. However, when you add in the capture technology, this is in the hundreds or probably thousands. Then we have about 91 effects on the Tone Master Pro and 95 on the Quad Cortex, really a toss-up in this category. Now as far as built-in cabinets go, we have 26 on the Tone Master Pro and 53, not counting stereo cabinets, on the Quad Cortex. However, in my experience with the Tone Master Pro, the microphones seem to be consistent across all the cabinets, which is not the situation with the Quad Cortex. When we move over to the connectivity, the Quad Cortex has built-in Wi-Fi, whereas the Tone Master Pro does not. You can use that built-in Wi-Fi to update the unit or download your presets. They both have built-in Bluetooth, they both have desktop editors, they both have 7-inch touchscreens. When it comes to rotary encoders on the front of the unit, the Tone Master Pro has 10 footswitch/rotary encoders and 2 larger rotary encoders. All of the footswitch/encoders are assignable, so that is 10 total. When we come to the Quad Cortex, we have 11 footswitch/rotary encoders, but only 8 of them are assignable. And if you were trying to see what those footswitches are assigned to on a dimly lit stage, the Tone Master Pro has you covered with built-in scribble strips, whereas the Quad Cortex does not. But both of them have built-in LEDs for their footswitches, which are customizable and you can assign to color code your effects. Now, one big feature the Quad Cortex has over the Tone Master Pro is the ability to capture your amps or analog gear. The Tone Master Pro does not have this feature. And lastly, and take this with a tremendous grain of salt because I couldn't find really any information on this, but the processor in the Tone Master Pro is supposedly an 8-core, whereas the processor in the Quad Cortex is based off 280 SPSC 589 Shark Plus devices, resulting in Quad Shark Plus core setup for signal processing. Hoy! That is a lot to say. What's up guys, I'm plugged into the Fender Tone Master Pro here. I have the Quad Cortex out as well. We're gonna compare these units in a very A-B fashion. I have these plugged into this 𝗦𝗔𝗡𝗦 cab, which is being powered by a solid state power amp. It's a little pedal, you can't see it, it's behind this thing. I'll put it up on screen right now so you know what I'm talking about. It's mic'd up with an SM57 on the Vintage 30 speaker and a Voodoo Ribbon 1 microphone on the T75. I need some lights on, what is going on here? I need some like ambient light there. So it's just kind of weird without these things. There we go. Okay, so I'm saying, it's mic'd up with an SM57 on the Vintage 30 speaker and a Voodoo Ribbon 1 on the T75 speaker. I am also running the built-in cabinet simulation of the same cabinet with the SM57 on the Vintage 30 mic'd up roughly in the same place. That way we can sort of compare, like we have a lot of options for comparing the built-in cab sim to a real cab sim. I wish I had these real amplifiers. I unfortunately don't have any of the high gain amplifiers that are in the Tone Master Pro, so we'll just compare some of the models back to back in each unit, and then we can talk about some of the other things that make one of these a better gigging option over the other for you, because maybe one's better for you, but the other's better for someone else. You know what I mean? The world's a tricky place. Let's chug. This is the default tone for the 𝗦𝗔𝗡𝗦. Now the only thing in this signal chain right now is a noise gate, and the amp and then a cabinet, depending on what you're listening back. I'll put it on the bottom of the screen so you know if it's the real cab or if it's the built-in cabinet simulation. But that's the only thing in this signal chain right now. Let's dial it in a little bit. There are some like quirks with this that you should probably know about that aren't super intuitive. Like the Fender Tone Master Pro, for the most part, is very intuitive. I would say it's the most intuitive, like just get up, build a patch, and go sort of multi-effects unit that I've used personally, but there are some weird quirks about it. Like, so one, we have an amp level here. I just rock that all the way up, and then that way I can dial the master volume right here down to about there, because you will notice this does react like a master volume on an amplifier. The higher you go, the more it sounds like compressed power amp tubes a little bit. So, you know, I like to run that a little bit lower. But this doesn't end here, because you might do this and then be like, man, I'm at like 78% master volume. Like, what's going on here? You actually have to go back out here. You have to click on this little preset settings button, and then you have the preset volume, which is set to 40% by default. Like, let's just turn that all the way up. Jesus Christ, what are we doing here, right? And now it's much louder. I don't think that that's a bad thing. By the way, just pointing it out, I think it's good that you can actually quickly adjust the preset volumes, you know, especially like if you were going to use this live, it makes it a little bit easier to bump up your solo patch, for example. It's just something you need to know. Like, there are several different volumes in the signal chain. It's kind of important, right? Let's dial this amp in a little bit here. Now, another quirk about this model specifically on the Tone Master Pro, the treble and the middle controls, I believe, are backwards, to my ears at least. So listen, here's the treble. Here's the middle. Maybe it's just me, those sound backwards. And the presence, I don't know if this behaves this way on an actual 𝗬𝗛𝗡𝗓, but it's very interesting because the closer you get to 100%, the more like body, I guess body would be the right word, it gives to the amp. We're gonna leave it about there. This will come up when we go over the Quad Cortex as well, so that's why I'm pointing it out. That's the thing about these touch screens, man. You gotta constantly like wipe them down for fingerprints. Gloss finishes on guitar too. Fingerprints everywhere. I don't know how that is translating for you guys, but here in the room, it sounds really big and full, and it has a lot of like growl that I kind of associate with like that Wagner 𝗬𝗛𝗡𝗓 sound. Now, a lot of people say that this doesn't sound like a Wagner 𝗬𝗛𝗡𝗓. I don't really know. I don't have a Wagner 𝗬𝗛𝗡 here. The closest thing I have is a Synergy module, so take this with a grain of salt, but it sounds pretty similar to it to my ears. Like, it has that characteristic bite and growl to it. And the response is really like, the response is just really nice. Like, it feels really good to play, you know? Again, take that for what it's worth. It's totally a biased comment. But let's move over here to the Quad Cortex and hear the Wagner 𝗬𝗛𝗡𝗓 through this amplifier. What? But let's move over here to the Quad Cortex and hear the Wagner 𝗬𝗛𝗡𝗓 with the same cabinet through the Quad Cortex. Okay. Now, I forgot to set this up prior, but it actually brings up a really interesting point here. This is actually much easier to set up when you're doing split signal chains and stuff like that. On the Tone Master Pro, you actually have to hit this instrument input, and then it will give you a bunch of splits. And if you already have a signal chain set up and you just want to split something, it's going to reset your whole signal chain. It's kind of a pain. On the Quad Cortex, however, you just add a splitter in here. Just hold down like that. So now we split the path here. We could put 3 and 4 there. Basically, I'm going to set this up exactly the same way that I had it on the Tone Master Pro. And the position is roughly right there. So we have this all hooked up the same. So the first thing that I noticed right away with the Quad Cortex is the top end sounds quite a bit different. You can call that fizzy, you can call it grainy, whatever. I'm not doing any tricks here with the Tone Master Pro or the Quad Cortex to like take care of that, although I'm sure you could. You could probably add an EQ and like try and tweak it out and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to give you guys like a raw representation of the tones of each of these, how I would use it like in a live situation, you know, running cabs to front of house and then running through an actual cabinet on stage. It doesn't sound bad at all, it just sounds different. Let's dial it in a little bit. You can really tell when you turn the treble up, it's like, that's the exact thing I'm talking about. The top end sounds very like harsh. Dial that out a little bit. Now, same thing here with the presence knob that we had on the Tone Master Pro, like it adds like in this full bodiness to it, but unlike the Tone Master Pro, this is more like linear, whereas with the Tone Master Pro, once you turn it past 90% is really when you got that effect, which I'm guessing, if that's the way it is on the normal amplifier, it's probably more similar to the Tone Master Pro. Does that make a difference? I don't really know, I'm just telling you. So the presence I'm rocking much lower than I did on the Tone Master Pro, but it's similar because of the way that it works. To me, the differences between these models and sort of how I feel about all the models on the Quad Cortex, we'll see if it's true with the EVH5153 Stealth here in a minute, but there's like a layer of sheenness on the Quad Cortex. Like they sound polished a little bit. I don't know what that is, but just listening to them in the room, they're quite a bit different. Now you might prefer one sound over the other. I'm not saying one's bad or one's good or anything like that. They're just quite a bit different. I think the experience of dialing in is quite a bit different too. Even though they both have these like rotary encoders that you can, you know, move around on the front of the unit. You know, it seems like the Tone Master Pro is more like logarithmic, I would say, whereas like the Quad Cortex is a little bit more linear in its approach when dialing things in. One's not better than the other, they're just different. You're gonna arrive at different settings to get similar results, if that makes sense. Since we've heard the Bogner models on both of these amplifiers, what Fender's version of the Bogner is versus what Neural DSP's version of the Bogner Überschall is, let's do another one that I think is gonna be a little bit more interesting. Let's do the EVH5153 Stealth, since that is a licensed version on the Fender unit and not licensed on the Neural DSP Quad Cortex. Does that mean the Fender's gonna be better? I have no idea, but let's try it. Okay, I'm gonna replace this with the EVH5153 Blue channel. I know that people like this channel a lot on the actual EVH amplifier. Let's go ahead and just preemptively turn the amp level all the way up. Okay, it's not my favorite sound ever right now, but let's do a few things here. Let's tweak this a little bit. I mean, it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good. It's a little bit like mid-heavy, a little bit like womp womp to me. You know, if I was dialing in this real amp, I would bet that I would not dial it like this, but this model sounds better to me like this. But again, playing it, it feels very nice to play. Like the responsiveness of, like, there's no... It sounds ampish, you know, more or less. That's a really loaded statement to make. So, you know, I don't want to say it sounds like the real amp because I don't have an EVH5153 Stealth here in the room to compare it to back to back, but I think it sounds good, man. Let's boost this guy here real quick, and then we'll jump over to the Quad Cortex. Let's go in here and let's replace this with a green box. Firm that. We're gonna do level all the way up. We'll do the drive down, the tone something like that. Chug mode engage, man. This sounds fucking cool. Let's go back here to the amp and let's just kill the gain a little bit. Again, like the bite on this amp, similar thing going on with the 𝗬𝗔𝗡𝗚. The bite sounds very good. And I'm not doing any post-processing or anything like that. That is the direct sound from the unit that you are hearing, or from the cabinet, depending on how I edit this. Let's save this. I want to test one more thing here real quick, and we'll do this on the Quad Cortex as well, but let's go back to this view here, and let's see about the gapless switching, because I know this is a big deal for a lot of people. The Tone Master Pro, while I can't find any specifics on what kind of processor it's using, it does say it's an 8-core processor, which would be double that of the Quad Cortex. It's the name Quad Cortex. You get it, right? But it so presumably it's double that of the Quad Cortex. Does that mean it has better gapless switching? Let's find out. There is zero lag between switching those things. It's instantaneous. If that matters to you, I know that's a big question I get a lot of times with multi-effects units. I know it bothers a lot of people when you press a button and you hear a small gap of like silence when you do that. I know that bothers a lot of people, so I wanted to make sure and cover that base. Let's jump over to the Quad Cortex and test out the EVH5153 Stealth Blue Channel. It's a mouthful.
That's what she said. Or he said.
On the Quad Cortex now. You know, the default tone is not dissimilar from the Tone Master Pro, really. Let's dial this in here. Everything's at 50% more or less. I'm gonna try and set this up similar to how I had it set up on the Tone Master Pro. This one sounds very, very good, and it was a little bit easier to get it here than it was on the Tone Master. Like, the Tone Master Pro felt weird. I had to like really dump the mids quite a bit to get it here. But if you look here, I have the mids like right around noon, and it has that nice like fat scooped EVH sound. You know, the top end on this amplifier sounds much better too, so that weird top end like sort of crunchy thing that was going on with the Bogner amp. That doesn't seem to be happening here with the EVH5153 Stealth model in the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, but I have noticed it on other amp models, specifically the dual rectifier. The dual rectifier was actually like very harsh. I'm not gonna compare the dual rectifiers right now. I've actually compared all the dual rectifiers in a bunch of different units. If you wanna see that video, I will link it down in the description, but let's do the boost. So I'm just gonna add this in. Now adding a boost in is also much easier on the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, because on the Tone Master Pro, you have to click where this little plus button is, and that's where it's gonna put the pedal. When you're setting up a signal chain, if you don't set it up in order from back to front, then you're actually gonna have to move those around after the fact, which can be a little bit annoying. You know, it's not really that big of a deal, but it's worth mentioning. What do we have here? We have a green 808. That's probably similar to what we're using on the other side. Turn the overdrive down, tone up just a little, level all the way up. Let's hear that. This one sounds good, man. And I gotta say, out of everything that I've tried right now, speaking to sound specifically, this is probably the most inspiring, but I do like the visuals on the Tone Master Pro more. You know, those are factors to me. Maybe they're factors to you, I'm not sure. But I do like the way that this is sounding. I think it sounds really good. Let's save this, and then let's test the gapless switching. That is a massive gap between switching presets. Now, you do have snapshots with this, which is sort of their answer to gapless switching. What a snapshot is you can set up your signal chain, and you know, you can put all the things in your signal chain and turn them on and off. But if we're being fair, the Tone Master Pro can switch presets with no latency. Like, there's zero gap between this. And the Quad Cortex, not so much. Again, I'm not saying that makes one better than the other one. I'm just trying to present you as much information as possible for you to decide what's better for you, because your opinion is what matters most. You know what I mean? Let's do one more thing here, because one of the big saving graces of the Quad Cortex over the Tone Master Pro, like if you're looking at both of these, the Tone Master Pro has no sort of like capture feature. And that's like sort of the bread and butter of the Quad Cortex. That's why everyone was so excited about this thing when it first came out. So here is my capture of an actual EVH5153 Stealth Blue Channel, 100 watt, you know, the same one. Now, the unfortunate thing about captures is like they're like snapshots of the sound of an amplifier, so you can't dial it in the same way you could with one of the actual models where, you know, you turn the treble up and it behaves the same way it would on the amplifier or something like that. It's just like a capture, and then you have the EQ controls, and it's sort of like a post EQ. So I'm not really comparing exactly the same thing here, but I think that this sounds just as good, if not better, than both of the EVH models in each of these units. So what's the final result here with the Tone Master Pro versus the Quad Cortex for gigging? Well, there's a few big things that stood out to me. Both of these units have built-in touchscreens and are intuitive to use, with the Tone Master Pro slightly edging the Quad Cortex, in my opinion. Both units have plenty of in and out options, again with the Tone Master Pro slightly edging the Quad Cortex. However, when it comes to implementing those routing options, the Quad Cortex wins. Now, the Quad Cortex does have more amplifiers than the Tone Master Pro, and even though both of these units do what I would consider amp padding, there is more than enough to get the job done with each of them, and the Quad Cortex coming out on top here. Take that with a grain of salt though, because the Tone Master Pro is still in its infancy, and when the Quad Cortex was released, it was kind of a featureless wasteland until the first few updates started rolling out. Now, the big caveat here is the capturing technology in the Quad Cortex, since it doesn't exist in the Tone Master Pro. Not gonna lie, that's why I bought the Quad Cortex. And though it's becoming more and more common on newer units and makes the QC less desirable, the Tone Master Pro doesn't have any comparable features, so big win for the Quad Cortex. While I didn't dive into all the effects in this video, and if that's something you want to see, let me know, they each have a comparable amount of effects. Both have the same padding feature here as well, but it's almost the same, so really it's a toss-up in this category. Unless you would actually benefit from having 2 stereo effects loops, then you might want to lean towards the Tone Master Pro. When it comes to connectivity, the Quad Cortex wins with its built-in Wi-Fi. It actually feels kind of weird that the Tone Master Pro doesn't have this feature, seeing as how it was released in 2023, but at least they had the foresight to use a Type-C USB connection and not the old printer connection that the Quad Cortex has. Then we have the processor, and I really wish I had some more specific information here. I'm not going to tear my units apart to delve into this because I'm not even sure doing so would yield any usable information I could really relay to you, but presumably the Tone Master Pro is in the lead here by a wide margin, but I can't really say for sure. I'd like to see a teardown of these units by someone more well-versed in this sort of technology than me, but for now I'm just going to have to take Fender's word for it. I mean, they did say that their processing power allowed them to have gapless preset switching, which was true, and I'm sure that's a big factor for some of you. But does that mean the Tone Master Pro will outlive the Quad Cortex? Only time will tell. The true test of the Tone Master Pro will be if Fender supports it into the future, because as of right now, it's seriously lacking in built-in amplifiers, and it doesn't have the capture technology to lean on. If Fender updates this and puts a lot more effort into making great amp models with the same beautiful user interface, and also makes a capture tool that rivals the Quad Cortex, I could easily see it pulling ahead. But if they don't implement this in the future, then the Quad Cortex will always have that feature over the Tone Master Pro. And lastly, the highly subjective sound quality. Both are absolutely usable in my opinion, and this one just comes down to your personal preferences. I really like the Bogner tone I got on the Tone Master Pro over the Quad Cortex, but I think my capture of the EVH5153 Stealth on the Quad Cortex was better than either of the amp models in their respective units. So this is probably a toss-up. It should not be the deciding factor in my opinion. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, leave me a like and a comment below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.